Now, let's reflect on that briefing by the Minister in the Presidency, the Minister of Police, and a representative of SARS, clarifying the visit by the President of the UAE, who is in the Eastern Cape on a private holiday, joining us for a reflection on how government has been responding and their approach is political analyst, Prof Ntsikelelo Breakfast. Prof, thank you for making time for us. You've been listening to government give South Africans the details of how this visit was facilitated. What are your impressions?
Yeah, I think the turn of events takes me down memory lane. You know, remember the prominent story of the Guptas with their aircraft that landed in a waterkloof, and that received a wide media coverage. So there are some questions that people are grappling with. You know, the first one is, why did the plane land in the Eastern Cape, given the fact that that is not an international airport? But of course, the minister says that they wanted to take off some stuff, a particular cargo in the Eastern Cape. But also there is an allegation of an amount of money that is not disclosed. So the question is whether that was reported to SARS or not. So I must say that the opposition parties are not at fault in terms of demanding accountability surrounding this matter, because that is the role of the legislative institution in terms of holding the executive institution accountable. But I'm not sure if the explanation by the ministers, they are enough.
Mm-hmm. So a SARS representative confirmed that when they checked the aircraft, there was no foreign currency that they found. From this explanation that the ministers have given, Prof, it looks like this is far from the experience that we had with the Gupta family. They're telling us that at least they've got correspondence. There was communication, you know, from the get-go, from the UAE authorities, that this is the president who's coming on a private visit. In fact, the Eastern Cape government asked the Home Affairs Department to grant them that permission to improve and the airport in the Eastern Cape. Do you think that from that explanation, South Africans are going to be at ease? And I think government does recognize that South Africans have got every right to start asking questions around this visit, given the experience that we have with the Gupta family when the family and their friends landed at Waterkloof Air Force Base. From what you heard so far, with the boxes that government says they ticked, should South Africans be satisfied, or do you think investigative journalists should do more to find out what government perhaps is not telling us?
Yeah, I think at the moment it's still early days to make that call that the majority of people will be content with the explanation that has been put forward. I think opposition parties, my reading of the situation is that they are going to take this maybe to court and try to demand some explanation legally from the government of the day, because there are a lot of questions that people are grappling with. I mean, the other one I've just shared with you earlier on, that, I mean, why of all places do you choose to land in the Eastern Cape in particular, given the fact that it is alleged that the government of the Eastern Cape received money from the government of UAE. So those are some of the questions that I think people will continue grapple with.
I think the explanation is that they were carrying a lot of cargo. So there's a lot that the aircraft was carrying. So it made sense to land at the Bulembu airport. And yes, that wasn't declared an airport, but Home Affairs Minister granted the request to declare it a temporal airport because of this particular visit. And add to that the fact that the Eastern Cape government, or even the national government, didn't have to use their own money to refurbish that airport. I mean, surely it should have or would have been a big problematic issue if government had refurbished that airport, particularly for this visit. But from what information we're getting, the UAE paid for that airport to be refurbished.
Yeah, I think you're making a good point, but at the same time, I think given the fact that we've had moments of madness surrounding similar issues, I think opposition parties need to demand more explanation, information, up until, the majority of people are content about the state of affairs in this area. I don't think that people should accept the explanation from the executive institution uncritically and not engage it.
Mm-hmm. Let's look at the positives, perhaps, spin-offs of this particular visit, and perhaps the economic benefits. I mean, these are, 500 or so, we are told, of people that have come. I imagine these are people that will spend some money here in South Africa, but more so, the minister in the presidency says this is an important endorsement of South Africa as a tourism destination. She says we stand to gain from engagements with the UAE, and there's now a platform that's been created for a discussion between the Minister of Justice and some authorities in the UAE about how they've handled the request for the extradition of the Gupta brothers. Are those the positives we can look at of this particular trip?
Yes, because I think at some point there was a tension between the two countries, in particular when our application was turned down. So I think this visit does, put the majority of people maybe, in a good light in terms of the economic spin-offs that this visit is bringing to the country. I just hope that the majority of people will benefit out of this.
All right. Political analyst, Prof Ntsikelelo Breakfast, thank you for making time.